the death toll now climbing after a bomb exploded inside a mosque in Kabul.
At least 21 people are dead. Dozens more were injured in the blast. Worshippers were gathering for evening prayer when the explosion occurred. Witnesses claim a suicide bomber carried out the attack. No group has claimed responsibility. The Wednesday night attack is the latest to hit the country since the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan 1 year ago. CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab joins us now from Kabul for more on this. Imtiaz, welcome. So what more do we know about that deadly explosion at the mosque? And has anyone claimed responsibility for the attack?
Errol, very good to talk to you. Well, at this stage, no group has claimed responsibility, but when we consider the number of attacks that have occurred over the last few weeks, and many believe that this bears all the hallmarks of an ISIS-K attack. ISIS-K, of course, is the Afghan affiliate of ISIS, which has been, or rather has claimed responsibility for a number of attacks. What we know about this one specifically is, as you mentioned, a suicide bomber entered this mosque during evening prayers, and we believe that it was the imam or religious cleric who was leading the prayer who was targeted. Now, if that is indeed the case, it again follows a similar pattern to what we've seen. In fact, just a week ago, another senior religious cleric was targeted in an attack in which ISIS-K did take responsibility for. This cleric very close to the Taliban, but all of this really just sort of solidifies some information that we're getting from the United Nations tonight, in which they say that the last few weeks have been among the deadliest Afghanistan has seen since the Taliban takeover 1 year ago. And if this continues, it's certainly bad news for Afghanistan, which, at least since the U.S. withdrawal 1 year ago, or just under a year ago, has saw a fairly marked decrease in violence. And yet here we are again, more deadly attacks. Elaine, Errol.
Imtiaz, that return of violence so stark when you consider what we were discussing here 24 hours ago, the humanitarian crisis facing so many in the country right now as well. And we just played a clip coming into you of General Petraeus speaking about how conditions in Afghanistan are different than Iraq, and U.S. troops shouldn't have withdrawn in the first place. That all certainly a topic of discussion. But you spoke with a group of girls forced to attend unofficial underground schools because of the ban on women's education there. What are they telling you about what their experience is like right now, considering all that's happening around them?
Yeah, it's a pretty staggering indictment of this Taliban leadership when you have what is described as the world's worst humanitarian crisis, and as we've now been seeing, some of the most horrific violence that this country has experienced over the past year. And yet the Taliban seems more focused on women and girls, specifically girls. And, you know, as you rightly point out, we visited a school which is sort of an unofficial school because girls from the age of 12 to 17 have largely been forbidden from going to public school or government-run schools. And so women across this country have decided to take matters into their own hand and create spaces of learning for these young girls to go. And we had a chance to speak to some of these students, and we asked them, how are you feeling about this? And they say, we want to be educated. We want to have educations. They're so young that they only know an Afghanistan in which women are educated, had jobs, were in the workforce, could be politicians. And so to lose those rights so quickly at such a young age is, of course, a staggering blow. But when I asked one of these girls what was it like to go to one of these unofficial schools where she has to be fully dressed in a black robe, many of them covering their faces, and indeed being very discreet whenever they go to these schools, she said, look, I don't like this. This is not how I want my education. I want to be able to go to a regular school. And the Taliban is saying that this is a temporary suspension, but it's been a year now, and there's no real sign that these girls will be going to formal schools and getting a formal education anytime soon. Errol, Elaine.
So eye-opening to think of those young women who only know a country where women have full rights, or at least rights to pursue their education and professions, and now
Certainly sobering to hear
that's been
that.
reversed. Imtiaz Tyab, thank you so much.